We said we have assets and then we have liabilities for any organization. For liabilities, we are just touching on those areas that we think are essential for us to kind of reflect on. And perhaps when you are seated here, it rings a bell. It tells you whether that's right. When we talked about assets, about debtors, we were asking ourselves whether we have the mandates. Who exactly says somebody can borrow? Here, it is the other way around. When people go out borrowing, for liabilities, creditors, who within that organization has the mandate to borrow? Definitely not everybody. Under normal circumstances, the chief executive officer for any place is allowed to borrow 1 month's salary of the employees. That's all. Otherwise, if you go borrowing stationery, you're borrowing bricks, you're borrowing paint, you borrow clothes, you borrow laptops, you borrow. And then at the end of the day, every time you borrow, you are putting some asset on the end. Because that asset can be liquidated so that the liability can be settled. So liabilities are normally in the ambit of the board of trustees. The board of trustees will allow you to go out and borrow. So borrowing should be a very, sensitive area. Even for succession planning, sometimes people say, oh, he borrowed when I came in, I don't recognize the liabilities because I didn't borrow. So the borrowing powers, the borrowing mandate should be lying somewhere above the chief executive. Somebody say, you can borrow this one you cannot borrow. And if you are saying, go ahead and borrow, there must be parameters, what to borrow, to what extent, and till where. That's why we come with 8 schedules. Every time somebody presents a report on creditors, on liabilities, that person should say who is owed how much for how long. I started last time by saying we have what we call professional skepticism. You know, there are certain creditors who don't go to bed if you don't pay them. Now, if you find a creditor in the books for 1 year, for 2 years, and this particular creditor doesn't come up to demand his money, to lay for what you owe him or you owe her, there is a question mark there. So that's a route for fraud. Because normally, you know, people keep liabilities in the books, and when the situation is good, when the liquidity of the organization is okay, they pay the liabilities. Pay to who? Somebody who didn't even lend you a thing. It is a creation in the books. So liabilities that last for long raise questions from stakeholders. People will ask, if you owe people for power, and else for 1 year, they will cut off the power. And say, oh, we haven't paid them, and it's okay with them, you know, we are a church, so they respect us. Yeah, they respect, but they don't respect creditors, you know, they date us. So we say 80 schedules. For incomes, income should be fully accounted for. Incomes, the word fully accounted for. Everything that is collected is fully accounted for. So the first sources of accounting is official receipts for all collections. And all that is in capital letters. All collections means what? Even the Sunday collections, the people who count the money, they will put it on a list. And at least 2 of the people who are counting that money shall sign it. People who count the bunch of bananas and the kilos of tomatoes and the onions that are brought on Sunday, they will sign at least 2 people. That's an official receipt, isn't it? It's a document that is raised right there and there. And then from there, the accountability text is issued. So prompt and full banking, normally that's a very normal way. When you collect money, please take it to the bank. If somebody needs the money, that person should go for the money from the bank. Because the people who are collecting are not the people who are signing off checks. The people who are signing off money from the bank are not the ones who are collecting. So the ones who are collecting will send the money to the bank. And the ones who want to spend, they can now start the process of collecting the money from the bank back to the office. Is that the victim syndrome? I believe it is not. One person should send the money to the bank. Now, if it is like the TEC, people are collecting the money here, and they want to send the money to the bank, so that the person who needs the money can go to the bank and collect. You create your bank here. In other words, the person who will be allowing this money to be spent at source will be the people who are signing off checks. Is that clear? Instead of sending the money to the bank, you say, okay, can I have authority to spend this money at source? Authority from who? From the signatories of the bank. The bank signatories will be the ones who approve. It's like sending off checks. And then you have donations in kind for incomes. Donations in kind. Whatever donations from abroad, from some donor, or from local donors, or even some Sunday collection that is given, goats are given, chicken, eggs, flour, whatever. Those are things that are given in kind. They should be valued immediately and recorded. Because otherwise you lose them because there's no value. Recycled materials, we're talking about the environment. If you recycle anything at your place, receive it as income. A pallet that comes with some goods from the port, and the pallet is sitting out there. And you make something out of that pallet, value that item and put it in the books. If you make a ladder out of pallets, that's an item that should be in the custody of somebody. We have been to hospitals here with some nuns who are very creative. If they give you an apple and you need a new one, you have to submit the old one. Or when they give you a new set of uniforms, you have to give in the old uniform. And then they make things out of it. They'll make mops, they'll make slings out of it. They'll make, all sorts of things. Some stuff for the incontinent patients. And everything that they make is recorded. And if it is recorded, I can tell you, it's a good when it comes to sustainability issues. You want to go out there and tell people, we are not losing a single thing out of our place. Means what? We are recycling things. We are recycling and have evidence for recycling materials. And then we say the income should be recorded on accruals basis. Now, for those who are not accountants, let's define it quickly. Accruals basis is you record income when you earn, not when you receive. Cash basis, you record income when you receive, not when you earn. Earning does not mean collecting every time. So, if I work until the end of the month and I have not received my salary, I've already earned it. It's already my income, but I've not collected my salary. You see what I mean? So the income should be recorded when you earn that income. If you have a house as a church that you are leasing out, when the day for the payment of the rent is due, then you already earned the rent from the tenant. That should be recorded at that material time. When you collect it, you are not collecting rent anymore, you are just collecting receivables. I believe that should be okay. Expenses. When it comes to expenditure should be fully supported. Now I know people work in rural areas, deeply rural areas, like Father was saying. But you should support that expenditure that you're spending all the same. Whether you're buying, ripe bananas, or you're buying water from some window of some bus or from some lorry that you're boarding in the rural area, you've got to support it. What we call the first, not bullet, the first point. I was told in Geneva not to say bullet. The first bullet, no, that's not the first bullet, it's the first point. This is adequate evidence. The question of adequacy here goes beyond a document. If you buy a cup of tea here in Dar es Salaam and you say it's 1,000 shillings, it's okay. If you buy a cup of tea and say it's 10,000 shillings and you produce a receipt, that receipt is useless. It is still not an adequate evidence. Adequacy means gullible. Can somebody, is it credible? Adequacy. So you say, I was traveling and I had bananas on the road, for the Tanzanian shilling equivalent, for those who are not from Tanzania, they can convert this. If you buy a bunch of bananas, a whole bunch, for 5,000 to 10,000 shillings is okay, to 15,000 is okay, but not 100,000 shillings for God's sake. So you just have to say bananas, 15,000 shillings. People will understand. But you say bananas, 20,000, 25,000, 30, 50, 100,000. So it's a question of adequacy. Is the expenditure supported adequately? Not necessarily with a document. It is enough to describe it. And in that context where you are doing it, where you pay, the person you pay, the item you pay, it will carry you through that particular supported. Payment vouchers for all payments. Whatever payments you are paying, you make a payment voucher, and the payment vouchers are signed at least by two persons. One person who prepared it, another person who approved it. I was talking the morning about signing checks. And this is why we say the bishops and the big shops in the organization that you want to protect should be signing payment vouchers, not the checkbooks, not the checks. The maxim is there's no writing a check until you have a payment voucher in place. Who's signing the payment voucher? Perhaps the bishop. It's okay. But when the checks are made, some other person will sign the checks. So payment vouchers for all payments. Evidence or mandates for exempt services. You want to write expenses in the books. I don't know about other countries. Out here we have like in the hospitals, if mothers are treated for pregnancy or childbirth, it is free. Children 5 years and below, free. All persons beyond 70 who cannot pay, it is free. And yet you have also our other people that we exempt because we are the church here. So if you want to exempt anybody for any services, there must be evidence. Evidence. If you are exempting an orphan, you want also to prove the orphan doesn't have relatives who are capable of doing that. It's otherwise being an orphan or a person living with disability. Disability does not mean capability. So you have to prove. It's not enough to say he is a person living with disability. No. So there must be some evidence there. Evidence or mandate for losses, fines, or penalties. If there are losses, the persons occasioning that loss should pay. If there are penalties, the people who are occasioning those penalties should pay. If there are fines, the person who occasioned that particular fine should pay, not the organization. If you want to pay it as the church or as the organization, you got to prove it is our fault that we have paid. So otherwise, if it is a loss, it is very difficult to run down some faithful people in the church. And then we entered, we got some laws, we paid some penalties. You are sitting here making losses. You are sitting here paying penalties. You are here sitting here paying fines. It's not very good. And at times, as auditors, we don't even want to see that in audited financial statements of some church organization paying fines. A fine. But I don't know what is the definition of opinions. There is that thing which is bad. Bad thing, we call it opinions. Where it is willful misconduct. In other words, the church willfully did not do something. And if the public organization or some public body came in and said, you must pay fine. You didn't pay the tax on time, fine. You were driving too fast, fine. The church was driving too fast, where? Must be the driver, right? Then the driver should pay. Isn't it? Okay, do we have a procurement committee in place? This is another problem. I was talking about the PSPATB. This is the public body that registered supplies of persons in this country. But the procurement committee, now it's getting a little bit harder and harder, especially with the stakeholders that don't sit in here. The people who give the money from the EU, from America, from Austria, from wherever. They want procurement committees in place. Independent people who sit down and look at procurement and say there is value for money. And the procurement committee shall also cover what you call donations. You just don't receive anything and everything at any time, anywhere, isn't it? Procurement committee should also be involved when it comes to donations. And in other words, and and I've been to a situation like that, when people promise you that they want to give you a container of medicines or medical supplies from some place, that has got to be processed by through a procurement committee. They will look at various laws, they look at various standards, and accept that particular donation. And I was told by some bishop, you cannot be a beggar and do something. Do you accept that as leaders? No. We beg professionally. We beg. Begging is a profession, isn't it? That's why you do your work. You know, a writer for some begging is a technical matter, right? You do your due diligence of the people who are giving. You look at money laundering, human trafficking, drug trafficking. Are you sure the other party that has given you? The procurement committee shall guide you through where you receive items of a certain nature, everywhere actually worldwide. Budgets and budgetary controls on expenditures, we don't spend beyond the budget until the budget is examined. I think we go through, we'll talk about budgets later on. Accrual basis of expenditure again. The accrual basis on income, you are writing income when you earn, not you collect. Expenses, you write your expenses when you spend, but not when you pay. But if you write your expenses when you pay, then that becomes cash basis. Accrual basis, end of the month, you have not paid your salaries, it is already your expense. So you write it the moment when you have entered into an obligation to meet that liability. That obligation is written in the books as expenses immediately. And then we have the last one here, and that's an issue. Father said you also talk about self-reliance and issues to do with sustainability. We have depreciation as an expense in the books. And I believe the accountants are sitting here to have it. And let me ask those who are accountants like you. The expense is normally put there as depreciation expense. What is the other side? Accumulated depreciation. So, sister, did you ever see accumulated depreciation by your eyes? Where does accumulated depreciation sit? And when we are charging people for cost sharing, like paying for medical expenses, paying for school fees, we normally consider wear and tear, the depreciation. If some students are coming to occupy your place, then you charge them for accommodation. You are charging for the beds, for the chairs, for the cupboards, for the kitchen equipment, for everything, right? After time, you should be able to replace those assets. And that's sustainability. Okay, so. But now you give a school to Mr. Shayo. I'm the school headmaster. So I collect the fees, and then I pay the expenses. When it comes to salt, I pay the supply. When it comes to uniforms, I pay the supply. When it comes to water, I settle the bills. When it comes to depreciation, where do I get the money? And it is on the expenses. It is there. The law allows you. In fact, in this country, we have got even Rubicons where they say, financial expenses, 12.5%, buildings, 5%, motor vehicles up to 3 tons, 33.5%. Laptops and all these other data processing equipment is 33.5%. Those are legal allowances on wear and tear. So when you spend the depreciation from the taxman point of view, it is very legal. At the end of the day, no headmaster, no head of school will tell the man and say, I didn't pay the depreciation. Therefore, the factor in the school fee that was meant for depreciation was not spent. They will spend it few. You know, few. Everything done, completely mission. And I always ask, where did you take the depreciation to? Say, Mr. Shawata asking about. I said, you paid for the salt, you paid for the sugar, you paid the salaries. Did you pay the depreciation? Yeah, I want to see. Oh no, it is accumulated. Accumulated where? Where is the couple where you accumulated the depreciation? I want to see it. It is not anywhere. So I'm putting this question mark here. In expenses, I'm saying, When it comes to depreciation, you would better just sit down as leaders and talk about it. Sometimes these are not easy to understand, but congregations are now understanding. What we are saying is, when depreciation is an acceptable expenditure, it is sitting on the budget, and now it's an expense that has got to be spent, it should be spent. You write a good check, move the depreciation amount from the administration bank account into the bank account of the superior of the organization or the bank account of the diocese. And when the diocese receives this money, that money is a capital income. It is not to be spent on a daily expenditure. It is not operational, because that money is spent to replace the buildings and the land. The buildings and the furniture and the motor vehicles when they get old. Are we clear with this one? Because you know, when you look at your financial statements, sometimes you keep quiet because we don't want to ask too many questions. I said, but how did they spend the last cent with the depreciation on? If you add back the depreciation, that is the money that should have remained. Because you didn't spend the depreciation. So if it is controlled, every quarter, some depreciation check should be written to the owner of the school, to the owner of the enterprise, to the owner of the hospital. Because if it was not a child owning that school, if it was Mr. Shayo, I would get back my beds and chairs and tables. Definitely. I'm not going to give to no kid my bed for nothing. No way. You understand? It is there, the costing. And our school fees are comparable, except for few schools that are made for funds and the people living with disability, fine. But the other schools here, you compare the private schools and the church schools, they are more or less the same. In fact, in some cases, if we may say, within these four walls, the church schools are more expensive in some places. And yet, the private guys are making the money. Why isn't the church making the money? Where is the money going? Depreciation. Where is depreciation? It is nowhere. But the government told it was very easy. People go to witchcraft to make sure that they are not removed from the school. So it is good though. Okay? We might come back to this if you want. Okay, documents and records. This is a factor in the organization. They have documents and records. They have to be conventional. They have to be maintained according to generally accepted accounting principles. Now, GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. That's an old word. Sometimes it's according to the standards. But some countries don't have standards. So if they don't have standards, they have what to call good management practices. And good management practices are normally accepted across the board. So documents, if you have documents, they have to be approved documents, and formats are also approved. You don't change formats every morning. The payment voucher is changed every time. The receipt book is changed every time. Now what is which? And also, a register of accountable documents should be in place. If you have got invoices that are printed out, then those invoices should be listed someplace and locked away so that they are not used to collect money from the public. And a pay stamp that is known so that the documents are not repeated, and a scan of documents if those documents normally fade away. You scan them on time so that you can see them next time if they want to be seen. And reports are normally filed promptly with all stakeholders. Now, what is stakeholder? We are trying. I understand. What's the professor now? It's good to talk about strategic planning and belief model. And here you've got to have to do what? Stakeholder analysis. And if you do stakeholder analysis, there will be key stakeholders. We have target groups of primary stakeholders, secondary stakeholders, collaborators, and competitors. And all these are people, when you are making your reports, you have to take their interests into consideration. A key stakeholder is that person or that organization that holds your legality. This is the person who registers you, the government, Rome. They can say, now you are no longer Catholic, and you will not remain Catholic. You're Catholic with whom now? If the government gives you a good registration number, certificate, you go to inspect it, and the conditions that come with it. Those are key stakeholders. These are the people who are holding your existence. Otherwise, they can wipe you off the earth. The next key stakeholder that is important are target groups. Now, these are the people who are holding what? Your relevance. They are the people you are serving. If those people get out, then you are no longer relevant. There's no person seeking any registration with anybody because you will not be relevant. So if you are there for all funds and all funds are finished, then you have no business to exist. If you are there for widows, the widows are gone, then you have no reason to exist. So those are the target groups. Are you serving the target groups? Those people have got to have some report from you, telling them what you got, telling them what you spent on what, and they will be the people to say whether you did what you are supposed to do. The question is, do they know? Do they have the capacity to understand the reports? Wait, it is not your business. Give them that report in good language. Because there are people in this country who are called, those in our countries that are called activists, and the people who are protecting them. They will read the reports and say, you are being used. You are being used to spend money for people that you didn't even consume. You really may benefit from. So the target groups are very important. They have to know what's happening. Primary stakeholders are the people who are the direct beneficiaries. The workers, for example, they are primary stakeholders. You have to tell them what happened during the year. And they are part of it, by the way. So if you tell them, it becomes an encouragement, it's some sort of motivation to go on. Those are primary stakeholders. And you have what you call secondary stakeholders. Those are their wives and their husbands and their children and the suppliers who give you stationery and people who sell you fuel. How do they get hold of your report? They will get hold of your report because the moment you file any report with some public organization, some public oversight body, that report becomes public knowledge. If you send a report to the registrar of company, or to the Ministry of Home Affairs, or to some, whatever the registration body, those reports are public knowledge. I can go there and ask for your report and I'll read it. So secondary stakeholders will take care of them. And then you have collaborators. These are the people who are helping you out. The donors, whoever is helping you, the people you are working together so that you hit your targets. Those are collaborators. You give them a report. And then you have got competitors now. Are you going to give a report to your competitor? Not directly, but they'll get hold of it. Because we also go out there to look for reports from our competitors as well. Why is that school performing better than my school? Why is that hospital, everybody's right at hospital? Why are people migrating to that particular church according to Father Titus? For those in that room will understand, on Sundays, if you go around places like Mwenge, you get confused. People are carrying Bibles, okay? And hymn songs. And they are kind of brushing shoulders. This one is going that direction, another one is going that direction. And they're all going to some Sunday services. We are not even talking about Saturday. We are talking about Sunday mornings. People are carrying kids all over the place. And they're going like this, and then they're like this. Isn't Christ there? No, Christ is here, yes, in green, and Christ is there in yellow, and Christ is there in red, and Christ is there. And the whole place is loaded with churches. And people are asking, why are people going in that church more than they're coming to our church? And they have to get some report from them. When I was writing one of those books, I went around these churches. Shall I tell you one small difference that I found? You know what it is? Manuel, listen me. Our church leaders, including myself, we have no time to listen to people with problems. We just don't listen. It's time for lunch. The office is closed. It's time for afternoon nap. Don't wake me up. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? My wife beat me. Your wife beat you. You can't even beat your wife. This is I've got better business to do. And people just telling me, the Catholic Church, I went out because nobody was listening to me, not even the small Christian community. You walk in there and there's no time for you. And then people are moving. At least the people around the market, that's what they do. Now, to church. Why are you coming to this particular place? You know, at least they listen to me. My husband doesn't listen to me. But the people in this church, not even the leaders of that church, they're just the other faithful. They spend time with this lady to hear what she has to tell. And that made a lot of difference. For some, anyway, what I'm saying is, if you don't give reports to your competitors, at least write a report knowing that your competitors are going to get hold of that report someday. The bad boys and bad girls are waiting, and they'll get hold of it. Anyway, so the report should be what? Structured and tight. Is it that report is the report going to roll out in March? It should roll out in March. If it is rolling out in March, in what structure? Like this. So the reports rolling from one diocese should have the same face, so to speak. The first item will talk about that, paragraph number 2 will talk about that, 3 will talk about that, and the conclusion will be like this. I think that's important for us if you are talking the same language, the same church, and we are kind of facing the same audience in the world. Feedback to reporting units, timely and formal. The reporting unit, if people are reporting to you, then when you prepare the report, give the report back to them. You see, you say, okay, the production unit, give me a report, you have these departments, you know, that are reporting to you. When you make the final report, give it to them so that they see the report is coming from them. I think that's true. Human resources, equitable remuneration is paid equitably, not equal. It is not equal, it is equitable. I think it is different, sour. Yeah, you are paid according to what you work, not according to the numbers that you have in here. We don't divide, workers by 5 and then therefore everybody is getting 1/5 of the cake. No. You get part of the cake or what you deserve. So it is equitable. Transparent handling of the workers, formal regulations, performance appraisal, updated staff portfolio is value for money. At times you pay people salary and you ask John, hey, shall I pay you a salary for this month? And say, sir, are you asking about me? Say, yes, about you. I said, I think, why don't you pay me this month only, and then next month I shall answer that question. Because he knows he's being paid for nothing. And we are very good in this church, especially with the nuns. Where the sisters, she's alone today. They say, what? Sometimes they retain people because those people have got families to fend for. And say, Mariana doesn't have to work here anymore. She's got a big family at home. If you don't employ her, So if you want to help Mariana, let Mariana stay back home. Send the salary to her. Because she's becoming a problem here. It's a disincentive for other people to see Mariana sitting down here doing nothing and collecting salaries every end of the month. And so, we don't terminate her employment because what is the family going to eat now? But the value for money should be there. The red rod, people should not be working too much, they should be working too little. And job satisfaction studies. What is that? Services should be optimally rendered. Optimum services. Do you meet them or do they come to you? Do they come during the rainy season, during the dry season only? Something like that. The environment is protected. And when you're protecting your environment, please protect the environment of the neighborhood as well. There sometimes you forget about that. And when you talk about the neighborhood, we're also talking about the neighborhood by way of relationships as well. And then the vision and mission upheld at all times. What are you doing exactly? Is that a school? Yes. Why do you have pigs around? Why do you have shops around? Have you seen hospitals running restaurants? Hospitals are running bars. And have you not seen? Sometimes the schools, they find it better to take care of pigs than taking care of students. The pupils, they're left there. The headmaster is busy with the cows and pigs because it pays. He doesn't pay to stay with the kids. Seriously, I've seen hospitals where the doctor in charge is busy with buying beer, gin, and what? For the restaurant is paying better than the patients. So he's not taking care of the patients. What is your mission? exactly here. Production of what? Cash or production of services? Same I'm saying, you're asking too many questions. Well, how many are few? So, because, I mean, you find definitely they're not within what they were set out to do, what they've set out to do. Are you in the evangelization or you're collecting money from people? Then you have announcements in the church, 40 minutes. Out of 40 minutes, 35 minutes are about collection, 5 minutes is about the rest. The vision has got to be clear. And we have to have constant and common reflection. Are we together? Yes. And then the applicable laws and regulations should be followed. Every law should be followed. Don't tell us, the donors don't want to hear. Or somebody says, you have to withhold tax from the tenant. And say the tenant doesn't want. Then from the landlord, say the landlord doesn't want taxes deducted from his pay. It is none of your business. You know, that is the law of the country. Isn't it? I mean, the standards are there as well. And the standards are here. Like in this country, the standards are there very legally. They're enshrined in the laws and bylaws of the NDAA, or National Board of Accounts and Auditors. You've got to follow that. They're enshrined in the laws of the Bank of Tanzania about money laundering. You've got to follow that. They are there in the PCCP. This is the Prevention and Prevention of Corruption and whatever corruption. The things to do with the corruption. That's the law in this country. And you have got another bad law called NOCLAR. Have you heard of NOCLAR? NOCLAR. This is non-compliance with the laws and regulations, where the auditor who comes to audit you, if he thinks you are breaking any law and it is not safe for him or for her to point it out, he will go around or she will go around to the enforcing agencies and tell them all about it. And this NOCLAR is international, by the way. So it's not a question of I'm coming from Ethiopia or coming from Sudan or coming from Malawi. It is there. Auditors are supposed to report to law enforcement agencies when the client is breaking the law to the detriment of the community. And there is nothing much you're going to do about it. Not in Africa. Whereas in America, those are the ones who come. It's those big brothers. You can do things there and nobody tells you. You can call Trump a rat and you still live. You want to try it someplace? Go ahead. So this NOCLAR is there. It's there in America. It works here. Forget about it. You think I can go to the police and say, Baba is having, what you say, protection of the child of the minorities, protection of the underprivileged. You will not live another minute. So sometimes we need our necks. But if you are there for Christ, as Father Titus said, sometimes you persevere with it. Not with the ordinance, because if you got the police or you got the PCCB or you got the Bank of Tanzania, Central Bank to report these things, you even might matters worse. You might as well engage the bishops. You might as well engage the heads of the congregations. You might as well engage the leaderships of the parishes or the dioceses. They listen better than those people who are there, because for them, when you report something, it's an opportunity. Not for everybody, for some of them. I'm told, shall I get 5 letters and he wrote this part of this? That's not like you talk. Oh, come on, time is up, and we might catch up next time when we have time. We had other topics to cover that we didn't cover. This will be the audits and the rest, but God willing, we shall make it up next time. Do we have a pressing question? One question. The sister, you will allow that to be one question. If somebody has got one question, I don't know how people are using those things. I was never here since they do these things. Do they work?
Yeah, they work.
I'm loud enough.
You're loud enough?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Come on.
Thank you for the presentation. Mine is not really a question.
Thank you.
But I would appreciate if you had samples of how these data are recorded, how they are tracked. Because yes, this is a blunt law, this is a lot of theory that we have received from you, but I was hoping if there are some samples of how we can track money coming in, money going out, what kind of maybe source of money income should be put in what section and all that. If there are some Excel sheets, probably templates that probably we need to use to check out or to track the
Shall I leave that to the secretariat? Yeah. Because, I'm saying that because there is no one format that we cut across. We could have something for the medical, for the health sector, something for the education sector, something for the purely pastoral sector. I'm okay with it. I mean, if you need it, I can put it up. I leave it to the secretary, they can take it up. If they think it's something worth doing, we will do it. Even for governance, no problem. We can always tackle that. Okay? I said one. Thank you very much for agreeing with that. So we have one question and that's the end. Thank you.
We are very grateful for the wisdom you shared with us and the knowledge. I'm sure we shall continue to explore more when we go back to our dioceses. Yeah, I think it's right to appreciate him much more better as he